Welcome to In the Loop on County Cable Montgomery. I'm Sonya Healy with the Montgomery County Council, and we are here today with our special guest, Casey Anderson, who serves as chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board. Welcome, Casey, and thank you for taking time out to meet with us.
Thanks, Sonya.
You and I had the opportunity to first meet as a result of your civic engagement here in Montgomery County. Can you talk a little bit about your background and why you wanted to become chair of the Planning Board?
I got involved in land use and transportation issues because I was riding my bike around Silver Spring with my son when he was about 5 or 6 years old, and really realized just how much that experience left a lot to be desired. It wasn't a really great place to ride a bike or be a pedestrian, and it really struck me the connection between not only how the roads are designed and whether or not the conditions are good with sidewalks and bike lanes and that sort of thing, but also the buildings. The way that a community is built has a big impact on the quality of life for the people who live there, not just because they occupy those buildings. They live there or they work there, but also in the impact that it has on all the public spaces around them. And so that was sort of an epiphany for me, as realizing the impact that land use had on quality of life.
And then why did those issues lead you to become Planning Board Chair?
Well, I was working on bicycling advocacy issues, and I got involved in the White Flint plan that was adopted a few years ago to try to redevelop White Flint to make it a little bit less like a 60s suburban line of strip centers and more like an urban, compact, more intensively developed place, but with higher quality amenities, better sidewalks, better bike facilities, better pedestrian infrastructure, so it could support a complete transformation of that community. And before I knew it, I was spending all my time at planning board and county council meetings, and woke up one day and found out I'd turned pro.
Sounds great, sounds great. Can you tell me why it's important for residents to get engaged in land use issues here in Montgomery County?
Well, I think that my path to this point is really about the realization. It dawned on me that planning and land use and transportation infrastructure have a big impact on the quality of our lives. Even if you're not really interested in real estate development or the economic development impacts that those kind of decisions have, it has an impact on all our lives and the kind of communities we live in, whether or not our children are going to have a safe place to walk to school, whether or not the quality of the architecture is going to support the kind of jobs and amenities that we all hope to attract here to keep this place prosperous, to keep the tax base strong. All those things are going to have a direct impact on every single person in this county, no matter where they live.
And what are some of the things that the planning board and planning staff do to reach out to various sectors of our community to make sure that you're getting feedback from all areas of Montgomery County?
We do the obvious things. We send out, in this era, email is the big, and neighborhood listservs are the first starting point for public outreach. But we're also taking out ads in newspapers. We're putting public service announcements on Montgomery Cable. We're going to community meetings on other topics. We've even started taking the Parks Department's trucks out to parking lots at grocery stores, intercepting people with clipboards saying, hey, did you know that we're working on a plan in your community? We're trying all sorts of ways to try to go to where the people are and let them know what we've got going on and how it can affect them. And we're always looking for new ways to improve that and to expand our outreach.
Okay. And for the residents at home that may not know what the master plan process is, can you talk a little bit about that, and when is the best time for residents to weigh in on an upcoming master plan?
Well, in land use, the building blocks are zoning, which is a set of laws that determines what can be done on a particular property, and master plans. You could think of zoning as like the paints in the artist's on the artist's palette they fill in the picture that's painted, but the colors themselves don't really mean anything unless they are given shape by a master plan, which is the framework that determines not only what zoning is applied to each property, but describes what kind of land uses like retail uses, commercial uses, office buildings, apartment buildings, single-family houses, townhouses, what types of buildings are going to be allowed or encouraged in specific locations, and also the other critical component that is the transportation infrastructure, the roads, the transit ways, the bikeways, the sidewalks that will link all that stuff together. And then the master plan also includes a set of recommendations about public facilities like where police stations or fire stations or libraries or rec centers or public parks should be included. So it really is the broad outline of what a community we hope will look like over the course of 20 or 30 years.
Okay, and what is the best time for residents to weigh in? Is it at the planning board level? Is it when the document comes to the council for approval? When do you think is the best time so residents can have the most impact with their opinions?
Well, before I was on the planning board, when I was a neighborhood activist and working on trying to get improvements for bicycles and pedestrians, I always found that early and often is the best way to get involved. It's good to be in touch with the planning staff. If you've heard or seen in the newspaper, or got a postcard in the mail, or saw in your neighborhood listserv that there's a master plan being considered for your neighborhood or a development proposal, call them up, send them an email right away, tell them that you're a neighbor or somebody who spends a lot of time in the area and you have an interest and you want to learn more. You can go to our website. You can also talk to the staff about other resources they can make available to help fill you in on what's going on, and then you can provide your input any number of ways. A lot of people think that the opportunity is really all about coming down and testifying. Mm-hmm. That's obviously one way to talk directly to the planning board, or you can come down to the county council building, talk to the county council when it reaches the council. But really, there's a million other ways. You can send email, you can pick up the phone, you can, we even have a Twitter feed for Montgomery Plan, so you can contact our staff. Any one of those methods will work, and we welcome all of them, whatever's most convenient for people.
Okay, that's great. Can you speak to what is the most important thing you would like for folks to know about how the planning board operates?
Well, I think a lot of people assume that planning decisions are made in some sort of closed-door process, and that the public-facing aspects of our work are just a formality. And I can tell you that's not true. We do keep an open mind, and the public's input is very important. I think that that's where it becomes especially significant to weigh in early. It is true that if you wait until the hearing, that a lot of times people have already kicked around some ideas, we've already gotten input through other channels, and sometimes it's better to come talk to us early or send us an email. Some of the informal ways of communicating can be crucial in making an impact on what the final decision is, because then it can come at a time when everything is first being mixed together, and we're still trying to come up with an approach that can form the basis for a consensus. That's not to say that the formal parts of the process, like the public hearing or what happens to the county council when they get one of our plans for approval, that it's too late. But I think that it's important to show up early in order to have the most chance of influencing the thoughts the staff has about a proposal, the thoughts the planning board has, and even the elected officials, it's to get your foot in the door while those ideas are first being formed.
Okay, great. What has been your most important decision to date in your role as planning board chair?
I think in 100 years, when people look back at what's happened in land use and transportation in Montgomery County, they're going to identify three major developments. And the first would be the creation of the Agricultural Reserve. We've set aside a third of the county's land for agriculture. Accompanying that, our 10% of our land is in the park system, so we have a huge amount of open space. So that would be the first decision, and that was made essentially, most of the key decisions were made in the 1980s to do that. A little bit further along was the decision to create central business districts and more urban places. That started with Friendship Heights in the 70s, moved on to Bethesda and Silver Spring in the 80s, and most recently places like White Flint that we talked about earlier, and what we're trying to do with White Oak and the Great Seneca Science Corridor. So the urban centers to complement the agricultural area, which is overlaid on an existing high-quality, very successful suburban pattern of development. And the third part, and the one that I've probably been the most directly involved with because it's intersected with my time being involved with these issues, is the commitment to transit. This is something that was described in plans as long as 50 years ago, but is only now with the Purple Line, Quarter Cities Transitway, and obviously everybody sees the impact that both ends of the Red Line have made on Montgomery County. I mean, and bus rapid transit, those decisions are having a profound impact already, and I think that they're going to be even more important in the future, and that will represent the third piece that really brings to fruition the vision of land use that was established decades ago. And I think when we look back on it, that those three pieces, transit, the urban centers, and the commitment to preserve a big part of the county for agriculture will be the big story for somebody who's a historian of land use and transportation in Montgomery County.
I know there's some exciting things on tap as part of the Wheaton revitalization. Can you talk a little bit about the special role that Park and Planning is going to play in that project?
We're excited to have the money partially from sale of our current headquarters in Silver Spring, and partly because the council is committed to give us the resources to build a new building in downtown Wheaton to be our headquarters for both the Planning Department and the Parks Department. That's very exciting. We think it's going to be a really outstanding piece of architecture. It's going to be a landmark building, very distinctive, and of the highest quality, and I think it's going to make a big impact on Wheaton aesthetically. But of course, the bigger impact will be over time as we bring more people into downtown Wheaton during the day. More office jobs will help to support the kinds of retail and amenities that have come to places like Silver Spring and Bethesda and White Flint and Rockville that Wheaton has been waiting for quite a while. So we're very excited to play a role in that, in addition to obviously being able to give our staff a great place to work where they can be productive and continue to make the contributions that they've made for so many years to the county.
And what is your vision for the future of Montgomery County? What do you think our communities and neighborhoods will look like 30 to even 40 years out?
I think that part of our role is to be flexible. I don't have a rigid view of how the course that real estate development and transportation will go in the county. I think in general terms that we're going to become more urban, especially in these centers I talked about, places like White Flint and White Oak. But I think that there has to be a recognition that the market has changed. The market will continue to change. We have to be able to adapt to that in the future. Our main task is to make sure that our land use and transportation planning is responsive to the economic development and quality of life needs of the county as they emerge over time. I think it's clear that transit will play a bigger role, but even that is a little bit fluid as far as what that will look like. How many bus rapid transit lines will be built? We've finally got the go-ahead for the Purple Line. When will the Quarter Cities Transitway be constructed up into the upper northwest part of the county, up to Clarksburg? Those kind of decisions, I think, are very much not so much up in the air, but it remains to be seen how quickly they happen and exactly what form they take. And I think that we have to respect the fact that we don't know everything sitting here in 2015 and need to be able to adapt to circumstances as they change.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're about out of time. I want to thank our special guest, Casey Anderson, who serves as chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board. And now you're in the loop with County Cable Montgomery.